Welcome to the Elite BSC podcast, where our entire focus is helping commercial janitorial contractors succeed. You want a growing company, a thriving team, and healthy profits, and we are here to help. My name is Jordan Tong. I'm the founder of Elite BSC, a company dedicated to helping janitorial companies grow and thrive. I also serve as CEO and one of the owners of France Building Services. France is a janitorial company employing nearly 600 people. Since 2007, we grew from 1.5 million to more than 20 million in annual revenue and built what I think is one of the best teams in the world. The goal of Elite BSC and this podcast is to give owners in the industry a vision of where their company can be and the information and tools to get there. I want to share what I have learned over the years to make this a reality for you. Hey, it's Jordan Tong here with Elite BSC podcast. So in today's episode, we're going to move on from what we've been talking about the last few weeks, a little mini-series on the 5 most important questions you could ask. And a topic today is on compensation strategies for key leaders in your organization. This is what I'm gonna play for you is an interview that Jeff Carmen and I did together where we spend a little bit of time talking about this issue and its importance and some of the factors to maybe think about as you're pulling some of this together. I know that good compensation plans have been critical to us over the years, and spending time thinking about them and being strategic with them really can help you keep the right person in the organization and keep them happy and thriving, which is what we want for our team members. And so I think you'll find that this is helpful. If it doesn't answer all of your questions or you want some additional follow-up, feel free to reach out to me, jordan@elitebsc.com, and I'm happy to answer any further questions that you might have about this. But, so I hope it's helpful, and enjoy. Hey, BSC, it's Jordan and Jeff here. Today we're going to talk about a topic. We talked about this a little bit before in some more granular detail. We're going to talk about overall compensation strategies for key leaders in our organization. Mm-hmm. And so even though we've discussed this, we want to dig into a little bit, maybe some of the why behind some of the things that we do here and an understanding of what we're trying to accomplish, mm-hmm. and maybe understand the position of our leaders and what they're looking for. Yeah. And so let's maybe start with the term compensation strategy. When we talk about when we say that term, what do we mean by that?
Yeah. So in the simplest of terms, it's just a plan that outlines how your company will compensate all employees. So that's a compensation strategy. And so if you think about that's the strategy for. So what is it you're trying to accomplish with your strategy? And you're really trying to accomplish 3 things. Is one, you want to be able to attract really good talent, especially in the key leadership position. So you want to have a good salary strategy to attract folks. It's also it's an opportunity, or it creates the opportunity for create some loyalty, so that, that we have some you can retain those folks. And then lastly, it's hopefully over the long haul is if with your key leaders, what you want is you want them to come to work for you and work there till they retire. Yeah. And so you want this mutually beneficial relationship where you're compensating them in an appropriate manner, and in return, they're giving a lot to your organization in terms of output.
Okay, so you talk about in this key leaders, we're talking about strategies for compensation plans for key leaders. So maybe help us understand, what do we mean when we're talking about key leaders in the organization?
Yeah. And I talked about, I mentioned every employee, and I think a compensation strategy ought to take into account every employee. But really for key leaders, these are the folks that we really want to hone in on this, because cleaners and even team leads, they're going to kind of come and go. But your account managers, your directors, your key leaders, maybe even your VPs, that level, that's the folks that we really want to come to work for us and retire if they can. So we're talking about primarily in this particular case salaried employees or salaried team members, and then maybe some higher paid hourly employees, account managers. So in some organizations, not ours, our account managers are salaried, but in some organizations the account managers may be hourly, and so those folks would fall into this as well.
Yep. No, that's good. So we talk about compensation. We're typically base pay and bonus things of that nature. But maybe walk us through when we say compensation plan or compensation structure. Walk us through what that all encompasses.
Yeah. And so I'll put them into three buckets. And the first is direct compensation, and so that's cash that goes in your pocket or their pocket, and that's broken into two types of compensation, and that is your base wage or your base salary plus paid time off. And I think a lot of folks forget the fact that paid time off is base compensation. If you offer somebody 3 weeks of vacation, you're paying them for 3 weeks when they're not working. And so that's a part of base compensation. And then what I would call variable compensation, which can be called a bonus or a profit sharing. Some people call it profit sharing even, or commission. And so these are things that are generally based on some kind of an outcome, that kind of piece. So direct compensation. Secondly is part of compensation would be employee paid or employer paid benefits. So this is the company portion of insurance premiums. So it's health and dental and things like even short-term and long-term disability and life insurance, maybe a vehicle, those kinds of things are a part of employee paid benefits. And then there's this other one, and we'll talk about this in just a minute, indirect compensation, and that is the employer portion of Social Security and workers' comp coverage. Those are things that come out of the company's pocket. And I'll make a note here is I would encourage every company, especially for the key leaders, to come up with a compensation statement, a year-end compensation statement that lays all of these things out. I did this I used to work in a medical practice, and I did this for actually all of our team members, and they were kind of shocked at how much I think everybody focuses on what their paychecks are, but when you step back and you say, wow, this is all the company is investing in me, a lot of times it's 35% more than what their pay is. Yeah.
And some of these too, talking about the base pay and the variable pay, depending upon the employees and where they're at, certain things are going to be more or less valuable to them depending on the position that they're in.
That's right. Yeah, you take for a cleaner, for cleaner positions and most hourly positions, they really are concerned, like how much money
base pay.
Yeah, that's right, because I got to pay for groceries. Yeah.
Right. But as the job expands, other factors come into play that are significant.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about for a minute about salary ranges. Like, how do you set them, and why are they important?
Yeah. So salary. So the salary range establishes the range of a salary for each position type, and includes a minimum, a midpoint, and a max. The range is set by conducting research. So there's a lot more that goes into this, but you do some research.
So what would you say, like for instance, an area manager or an account manager, whatever, they make between, on average, on the low end, $35,000, and on the upper end, $55,000.
Yeah,
for instance, that's the band.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So so let's say yes, that's right. So that you first start with to put together salary ranges. You put together a midpoint, and the midpoint is a place where you would say if somebody is doing this job well, they have all the experience and everything necessary to really perform this job well. Not a superstar, but a really good team member. What would you pay that person? And then you would take from that. You would say, I'm gonna use a multiplier to determine what the min and the max is. And so a typical thing. Let's say the midpoint's $50,000. A minimum on that or from that midpoint would be like $42,000, and then a max would be $57,000. So that's the range that comes into play. And so the ranges are important for this reason. They provide transparency in these positions. And so you're able to say to an account manager, this is the range of pay that you're going to have for base compensation. So it provides that. It also helps in recruiting. So when someone is applying for a position at your company, you can say, hey, here's the range of pay. And so it really kind of takes the guesswork out, and it allows you to talk to a candidate and say, this is the range, versus them coming in and saying, I need to make $60,000, and which is sometimes how that goes. Yeah. And they may need to make that, but your range is in this point.
Yeah. And so it takes time over years to develop this, I would say.
For sure.
And some experience. Right. And so, don't get all bent out of shape if you don't have ranges for all your positions.
Absolutely.
It took us some time to begin to develop what these were.
That's right.
Early on, you're like, hey, what do I need to do to get that person?
Right,
or I have $35,000, I got to find somewhere.
That's right.
Over time, this will become more established.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so it starts with really grouping and ranking. And what I mean by that is what you want to do is take each one of your departments, if you will. And again, this is going to be different for every company. And so, like, for instance, take HR. So in HR, we have recruiters, and then we might have a manager, and then we might have a director, and you might have a VP. I mean, depending on the size of your company. Take operations, for instance. You got a cleaner, team lead, on up to where you get director. And in each one of your areas, you have that ranking. So again, admin services, you might have an associate, a manager, a director, and a CFO. So you go through this job, so you rank all of those jobs. So each department rank each one of those jobs top to bottom. And then you go through a process that's called job evaluation, where you are measuring the size. When I say size, and I'll talk about that in a minute, you're measuring the size of each position relative to the others. So there's typically, when you're doing this, there's three factors that you consider when you consider the size. So for instance, the first one is accountability. And really, it kind of boils down to what's the value that each role adds to the organization. So then it allows you to say, if I have a sales associate, do they line up beside accounts receivable associate? Do those jobs, do they have the same value to the company? Secondly, or the second factor is problem solving. And this measures the challenges that a person is going to have to bring to overcome in order to deliver value. So it's really the problem solving of the job. So for instance, does a salesperson need to have more problem solving skills versus an account manager? So it allows you side to side to see where these things line up. And then lastly is know-how. And this talks about knowledge, skills, education, those kinds of things. And so if you look at a CFO, that person is going to need maybe a lot more education than an operations director, but an operations director might have to have more problem-solving skills than a CFO. So this allows us to kind of put all of those pieces together.
So based on these pay structures, for your leadership team, you may have different base salary ranges, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So absolutely. So you may have, let's say in an organization, you may have director of HR, director of operations, director of administrative services, or in that role. All three of those people might have a slightly different base salary because there's all of those factors. And I think generally we tend to think, oh gosh, they're a director, so everybody gets paid the same. And that might not necessarily be the case.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about the perfect balance of base compensation and variable compensation.
On this leadership level. And again, leadership level, again, to go back, it's really kind of your directors, your key leadership team, and then probably that layer below, which is going to be regional managers and maybe even on down to account managers. So I think in most leadership positions, I think an 80-20 split on base versus variable pay is the place to be.
Yeah. And when you say that, their total compensation, 80% comes from base salary, 20% comes from variable.
That's right.
Additional compensation.
Yeah, and again, going back to what we said early on, we're just talking about compensation that this doesn't account for indirect compensation.
Direct comp.
This is direct comp. I think the only exception to this might be whoever is the head of your sales or salespeople. You could probably get into more of like a 60-40 split with 60% base, 40%. Although I could make an argument for that whoever's head of sales is doing a lot of things beyond sales. So they may be taking care of your website and doing a variety of other things that it is not directly just related to going out and drumming up business. So I could even make an argument for 80-20 on those folks too.
Yeah, no, this is a lot of good stuff. And I think one of your jobs as an owner is to think about this and to do this well. So you start to unpack, okay, what do you Peter Drucker talks about in his book, The Effective Executive. You have to decide as the executive, what are the things you are supposed to do and contribute? And one of them is building your leadership team and developing compensation structures at work. And so this is important, and I think it's something that's worth thinking through. We're always happy to help with this sort of stuff and give you resources, and anything we have, you're welcome to it. So we hope it's helpful, and we'll see you next time.
If you found the information in this podcast helpful, please like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform that you're using. If you would like more resources or help to grow your cleaning company, head over to elitebsc.com. We have loads of articles, videos, free tools, coaching options, and a lot more. If your company is greater than $500K in revenue and you want to take your learning experience to the next level, check out our mastermind group. You can learn more about that at elitebsc.com/mastermind.